Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast, powered by Advanced Takedown Tree Stands, episode number 198. Rob Richardson, shed hunting, homesteading, and blood dogs. Please support our sponsors as they make this show possible. Today's show is sponsored by Advanced Takedown Tree Stands, Covert Scouting Cameras, the Horny Buck Seed Company, the Euro Hanger, and Morse's Sporting Goods. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
Hey, this is Hal Blood from Big Woods Bucks, and you're about to push play on my favorite podcast, the Big Buck Registry.
This is Laura Zara from Naked and Afraid, and you're about to listen to my favorite podcast, Big Buck Registry.
I'm Stacy Lynn Harris from GameandGarden.com, and I'm listening to my favorite podcast, the Big Buck Registry.
Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. This is Jay, and I'm sitting here in Big Buck Studios with my good friend Dusty Phillips, getting ready to knock out another episode for you. And we've got another fantastic lineup. This was kind of interesting. We actually brought Rob Richardson into the studios, and he's he formed the New Hampshire Shed Hunters Club here in New Hampshire, and we're going to talk about that and a whole bunch more. But let's see what's going on in Podcast Studios South. What's going on, Dusty?
Oh, man, it's still turkey season. I got one more tag to go, and I'm going to try to get after it this weekend. Beautiful,
man. I'm tagged out as of Wednesday, and Jim tagged out. So the entire crew of the Big Buck Registry is tagged out with their turkeys.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm halfway tagged out. How about that? I got one more tag to fill in Ohio, and
right. I guess I misworded that. Everybody has filled a tag, I should say.
Yeah, great long beard, by the way, Jay.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. It was a heck of a good hunt, and I think I'll save that for a little project that we're working on with the NWTF and Fred Bird. But it was a heck of a good hunt. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely. There's nothing better than getting the old Thunder Chicken to come into your calls and getting him on the ground. It just doesn't get any better than that.
It's just so fulfilling. You work hard at it, and you finally get that opportunity, and you put it all together, and they cooperate, sort of. They had to kind of manipulate them and maneuver strategically, and it all worked out. Just love it when that happens.
Yeah, it is always fantastic when you get the Thunder Chicken in the truck.
Absolutely, it sure is. We've got a few harnesses that are coming in, so if you want to get involved with our harness program, where we take all those new but unused harnesses that are coming in all the tree stand packages these days and give them to the people that need them, you can just shoot us an email, jay@bigbuckregistry.com. Well, we'll be talking to Rob Richardson and talking all about shed hunting and blood tracking dogs and Rob's interesting lifestyle that he leads, almost a true homestead kind of scenario up here in New Hampshire. But before we get to Rob, let's turn to Jim Keller with the deer news.
The deer news this week is sponsored by the Euro Hanger. You don't have to spend big bucks to hang your big buck. Get yourself a Euro Hanger. Facebook.com/Eurohanger, EUROHANGER.
For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News. Our first story this week. DDH's exclusive DeerHunter.tv joins Roku lineup. This story was originally featured on the deeranddeerhunting.com website and was written by Alan Clemens. DeerHunter.tv, the exclusive video channel brought to you by Deer and Deer Hunting, is now available on the Roku streaming device. DeerHunter.tv is home to thousands of videos you can watch anytime at home, work, or on a mobile device. These videos feature top deer hunting experts, including Dan Schmidt, Gordon Cran of Deer and Deer Hunting TV, and the veteran hunters Steve Bartilla and Mark Kaiser. Whether it's new products or hunting strategies, DeerHunter.tv has you covered. Now, DeerHunter.tv will be part of the lineup on Roku's a la carte streaming service. Roku comes either pre-installed in a TV or as an accessory that connects into your TV with a box or stick. An account is free to create, and there will be no monthly charge for using Roku. The only expense is the cost of the TV or the cost of the box/stick. There are thousands of streaming channels to pick from. Some cost money, some are free. DeerHunter.tv is free, but in both cases, they must be installed. wolf hunts returning to Wyoming. This story was originally featured on the Outdoor News website. Wyoming will hold a wolf hunt for the first time in 4 years this fall, now that a federal court has lifted endangered species protection for wolves in the state. Planning is now underway for the hunt in northwestern Wyoming, which will probably be similar to the state's last wolf hunt seasons in 2012 and 2013. The department allowed hunters to kill as many as 26 wolves in an area outside of Yellowstone and Grand Teton National Parks and northwest of the Wind River Indian Reservation. Hunters who were among the 2,153 who purchased licenses that year got 23 wolves. Another wolf that was killed illegally also counted towards 2013 quota. During the 2-year period that wolves were brought back under federal control in Wyoming, wildlife managers continued to kill wolves that preyed on livestock and caused other problems. The tightly regulated hunting season only applies to wolves' core territory in the greater Yellowstone area. Elsewhere in Wyoming, where wolves aren't nearly as numerous, unregulated hunting will take place year-round. Wolves there may be shot once again on site by anybody with a gun. Outside of the wolves' core habitat, they are classified as predators of livestock, like coyotes. The shoot-on-site provision in effect for most of the state has been particularly bothersome to wolf advocates who want to know the state will maintain a viable population. The state decision to plan for its next wolf hunting season came after the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia on Tuesday put wolves back under the state's control. Environmental groups, including the Natural Resources Defense Council, declined to appeal and say they plan to focus on stopping efforts in Congress to keep wolves off the endangered list and prohibit legal efforts to keep wolves listed. About 5,500 wolves, many descended from the wolves reintroduced to Yellowstone National Parks in the 1990s, now inhabit the continental U.S. states, where they are once again hunted to near extinction. Tea made from deer antlers may cause botulism. This story was originally featured on the Los Angeles Times website and was reported by Rong-Gong Lin II. Tea made from deer antlers may have sickened 2 Orange County residents with botulism, a serious illness caused by bacteria that can cause paralysis, breathing difficulty, and is potentially deadly. One adult has confirmed a case of botulism, and the other has a suspected case, the Orange County Health Care Agency said on Friday. An investigation by the Los Angeles County Department of Health suggests that botulism illnesses may be connected with drinking the deer antler tea obtained in March. Health officials said anyone who purchased the products in March should dispose of them. That concludes this week's edition of the Big Buck Registry's Deer News. For links to the stories featured this week, please check our show notes at www.bigbuckregistry.com. If you have any ideas for future topics or have questions about any of these topics, please email me at jim@bigbuckregistry.com. For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News.
Thanks to Jim Keller for the Deer News. Without further ado, here's Rob Richardson.
Rob Richardson, welcome to the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast. What's happening, my friend?
Well, I'm here in this big town of Warner to come and see you.
You made it all the way up to Big Buck Registry Studios.
Well, down for us, really. It's a little south, but yeah, we're here.
Nice. So we met up at that Trinity Sportsman event, and we had a brief chat, and we both decided that a more in-depth conversation would probably go a long way here.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think that we hit upon a lot of stuff that we wanted to hit on. Right. Of course, it was a little abbreviated from what you normally do, so Here we are.
Yeah, we were doing those 20-minute interviews, but we like to go long. So welcome, and we're going to go deep. We're going to find out all about you.
All right.
What makes you tick? Soup to nuts.
That might be a little scary, but I'm in for it.
Sometimes it is scary because you start to learn things about yourself that you didn't actually know you knew.
Yeah.
So Rob, tell us about yourself. Where are you from?
Well, I was born in New London, New Hampshire, about 47 years ago or so, and raised up basically in Sullivan County. I have barely ever left, and I don't really like leaving there too much, I guess. I'm a little landlocked. I think I went to Pennsylvania once.
You went to Pennsylvania once? I
did, with my brother, delivering cattle.
All right.
And that was a little too far for me. I got a little scared.
So you like staying home?
I'm a homebody.
You're a homebody.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, except for my shed spots anyways. So I like getting to those.
You call New Hampshire home.
Mm-hmm.
And what about New Hampshire do you like the most? What is it that keeps you here?
I guess I got to say the freedom. I mean, this state is you never feel like you're encumbered by anything. I guess that could be good and bad, but it just feels like you have free reign over just about everything. We have the common land law here. We have so much open property to use.
Right.
In some states, you can't do that. You can't just jump out of your car and run across a field to pick up a shed that you saw.
Right.
It just doesn't work that way.
That's why Dusty likes to turkey hunt in New Hampshire.
Oh, yeah. I can't blame him.
It's one of the most unique things about New Hampshire. I mean, and I've hunted other spots, and each spot has their special thing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's New Hampshire's special thing.
Definitely. You can pick up on a vibe from a certain area that is either going to produce a turkey, a deer, a moose, a shed, a bear, whatever. You can just feel it.
Right.
And I don't know if it's just something that gets transferred through the granite under our feet here, but it's definitely here.
What were you like in high school?
Oh, I was a nerd in high school.
You were a nerd?
Oh, I was a nerd. They used to call me Bruce.
Why Bruce?
I was a Springsteen fan.
Okay. Everybody
Everybody else was into Zeppelin and all this other stuff. I was a Bruce Springsteen fan, and I would, I had the bandana and the whole thing, just like in the Born in USA thing. Nice. But I was an art geek. I mean, I was always in the art room. I had the special studies where we had X amount of art classes that you could take. Well, I took every art class I could, but I painted. I was a painter.
Okay.
So the teacher would have me in class, and I was supposed to be doing pottery. Yeah. He had me set up in a little corner, and all I did is painted all day.
Gotcha.
So
you're a painter, and you're a painter still today. Mm-hmm. What do you enjoy? I mean, I don't know a lot about painting. I mean, I go to an art studio now and then, or an art gallery, but I don't really know anything about art. I'm not an art guy. So tell me about that a little bit more.
Well, I feel like, okay, so in your head you have a picture. Everybody has pictures in their head. Am I right? You
Absolutely,
picture
all the time.
Right now we're in turkey season, so you picture that big tom, or you picture that big bull that you've been looking for to get pictures or to find the sheds, or if you're lucky enough to get a tag to shoot. Well, in my head, I can see these pictures, and some, by the grace of God, I can put them on the canvas. So I can put my innermost pictures of my head and my thoughts onto canvas, and I can do it for people. Somebody has a special deer that they shot, or they, like with our friend Carter, he had a deer that he had found the sheds and tried to shoot the thing, but somebody else got it. Well, he had a long history with this deer, so I painted a picture of the deer he called Curly and brought it to life for him again. So it's just a talent that I've had since I was a little tiny kid, and I just still do it today. It's a release of my thoughts and my energy, I guess.
Gotcha.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. I mean,
I just literally, like yesterday, was seeing Curly, the night shot, on Carter Heath's Facebook page. I really had.
There you go.
Yeah.
Small world, isn't it?
It is a small world, and because of the internet, it's gotten a lot smaller, I guess.
That's so crazy. I mean, I just like stopped and just like, man, this guy's talented. Like,
well, thank you.
I zoomed in on it, seen the shed in the snow by the stump. I can replay this whole thing in my head, and I'm not looking at it.
That's interesting. That's crazy. Wow.
I mean, like you such detailed. You can see like the curves and the neck fat on the skin of this buck. It was so crazy. It was such a great painting, and it's amazing that I had no clue that you painted that, Rob.
Yeah, that was me. I will admit it.
Ain't that crazy though?
I like doing the detail work like that to show. In a lot of paintings, you'll see of deer. It's just a brown deer. I like to bring out all the small details that we don't normally see when we first look at it, but when you go back and you look at the deer or see it in your head again, you can see all that. The steam coming out of the nostrils when the deer is coming down on that nice November morning when it's coming towards you.
Right.
It's all those little details that bring it back to life.
It was just it's so crazy. I mean, it just blows my mind right now that I literally like studied that exact painting for probably like 10 minutes yesterday. Like, man, from the snow on the trees. I mean, I can just replay this whole thing. I looked at the footsteps in the snow. I freaking detailed that picture out. Like, man, this guy is good. That is so crazy.
That is crazy. And I got the artist right here in the studio right now.
That's amazing. I mean, It just blows my mind that literally I could tell you it's on Carter Heath's Facebook page. I think that Rob, you was probably the one that tagged him in it.
So, Rob, when did you grow the beard, man?
Oh boy, I get asked that all the time. The beard is a long story, but I'll shorten it up a bit. My buddy James and I had been hunting the property that we had lived on for 2 or 3 years, and we had all kinds of close calls with a couple of really big deer. And I got out of the tree stand one night when he came from his stand, and I says, "That's it, I've had enough." I says, "I am not shaving this beard until I shoot a 200-pound buck." And as you can see, I'm still wearing this thing.
Still sporting the beard.
It's 3 years ago.
And so everybody listening to this, it's a burly red beard, a little bit gray, kind of scattered in there, but it's got that Duck Dynasty feel to it. And
Are you feeling it?
I'm not feeling it. I don't think I'm going to reach over there and grab it. That'd just be weird.
It has no product in it today.
No product.
So it's definitely a little coarse tonight.
It's all natural.
It is. It's
All
more.
natural.
I wear it kind of in a way. That way, the Highland cattle that I do take care of every day, they kind of feel like I'm part of the herd. I can get them to do what I want like this. So
Diane's over here almost falling out of her chair. Diane's joined us, but she's not miking up. But she literally can't stop laughing right now.
Diane didn't like it at first.
So like you've got this bond with the Highland cattle like no other person in the world.
Oh, definitely. My brother will kill me for toting it, but I work for a farm that's one of the premier Highland breeders in the country. We've gone to the National Stock Show in Colorado and pretty much cleaned house for the last couple of years with the breeding cows. So we're actually a pretty well put together place, and I love it. I love being around those wily animals.
So much that you growed the beard to fit in.
Yeah. Well, I did. I look great, just like I don't have any horns.
So was it really the 200-pound buck or was it the Highlands?
No, it was actually the buck. It was
Okay.
the 200
Right.
the 200-pound buck.
How close have you come so far?
189.5 pounds. It was a nice 8-pointer, but it didn't quite. I've shot some deer with some pretty good racks, but they just never way up.
Right. Dusty and I have talked about this, ad nauseum about what we consider 200. You say 200 to a guy in Ohio, they're thinking inches. You say 200 to a guy in New Hampshire, and you're thinking pounds.
Right. It's a New England thing.
It is.
It's definitely a New England thing.
It took me a little bit. Gosh, I'm listening to somebody talk one night through Jay, and at the time I didn't know New Hampshire, and it was all virgin territory to me, and I'm like, oh my God, this guy said he shot 200, and I'm like, wow, I'm freaking moving to New Hampshire. They got 200-inch bucks like this. So I got on this New Hampshire deer hunting or something, and become a member of this group on social media, and these guys are like, yeah, I shot a 200 last year. I'm like, man. No way, and I'm like, man, that's a big buck, that's a great rack. Oh my God, they're everywhere. Everybody shot a 200. So then I, as time goes on, I realized that we're talking 200 pounds versus 200 inches. I'm like, oh. So then, like, for the longest time, Jay held out on me that they had 130, 150-inch deer, and that's it.
Yeah, it's pretty. That's
a good. I mean, we have obviously
that's a good buck.
That's a good buck.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's.
But at the time, I was thinking, man, these guys are freaking they're shooting slobs every year. Look at this. This guy said, this is my fifth 200-inch or 200. I'm like, oh, my God.
Right. Could you imagine if we had 200-inch bucks that all went over 200 pounds and we had the land use laws that we have here?
We'd be inundated.
we would be the cream of the crop when it came to deer hunting.
I wouldn't even buy a Ohio license if you could do that.
Right. Seriously.
Yeah, no kidding.
That would be a world that I would just dream of someday. And no, not that will never happen. But but it would be an amazing.
It would be
situation.
great.
Right.
And I'm thinking that the 200-pound thing started because back in the day that the old timers were hunting these deer, the 200-pounder had more meat on it, could feed the family a lot longer. I mean, that just makes sense to me because back in those days, the turn of the century, people were more worried about feeding everybody than they were. Most of the guys would cut off the antlers and throw them away. They didn't even keep them. So it was basically to feed everybody. So nowadays it's just kind of like it's that benchmark. If you've gotten to the point where you can shoot a mature buck in New Hampshire, and let's face it, in New Hampshire, a mature buck that weighs 200 pounds has earned his keep. He's there for a reason.
Right.
So you're beating the best of the best.
Absolutely. That's the best buck you're going to get. I mean, that's the smartest animal in the woods.
Oh, definitely. I got one friend. He actually, this guy we track for, he shot 12 over 200 pounds in New Hampshire. I'm not going to give away his spot because he'll probably come and shoot me in my sleep. But that's in Sullivan County. So
right.
the guy just has a couple of spots that are hot. So,
yeah.
But I mean, if you can shoot 1 over 200, you're doing good. If you can shoot 12 over 200, you're right on the top of the hero list as far as I'm concerned.
So, Rob, you're part of and one of the founders of New Hampshire Shed Hunters Club, and I want to get into that in a second because that's why you're here.
Yeah.
But I want to. There's another aspect of your life I really want to dig into, and it's your homesteading lifestyle that you guys have. And Diane had told me a couple times that we'll be over, but we have to take the boat across the pond.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure what that meant. I didn't know if you were like taking the motorboat or the yacht or what. But I've got to figure out what is this all about? Tell me about where you live and how you got it set up.
Okay, I live in a little cabin on the side of a pond that has solar power. It has solar lights, I'll say. We have LED lights that run just like your lights here in the house, and it's pretty primitive. I mean, we have running water. Mm-hmm. We run to the lake and we run back to the house so you don't freeze with the water that we've cut a hole in the ice. No, I'm just joking. We have water that we bring in from our well, and then to get across in the summertime, we shut the roads off. Our only access to there by any motor vehicle is by a snowmobile in the wintertime. So we go back and forth. We ferry back and forth in our 12.5-foot fiberglass boat, and we have a parking area on the other side of the lake. Not my ultimate choice of some place to live, I guess.
Okay. All right. But you make it work.
We make it work. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I love living there. Right. I just wish that I could some mornings could just get up when I'm running late and just jump in the car and go to work.
Right.
But it has its ups and downs, and we have loons that follow us around in the boat. We see a lot of really good sunrises and sunsets coming across, and heck, I can go to work fishing. I can come home from work fishing if I want in the summertime.
That's pretty cool.
So it's not a bad deal, really.
What about the wintertime? What happens then? You just walk across the ice?
No, we have a snowmobile that she's petrified of the ice anyway. She has a phobia. We actually go out ice fishing.
The look on your face, Diane, is like...
No, she's not an ice person. She wouldn't even go out ice fishing with us.
Okay.
But I have access with the snowmobile, so we have a snowmobile with a trailer to get in and out with.
Gotcha. All right, so this is hardcore. I mean, you're living off the land there. You're just you're not relying on obviously electricity and all those things that we probably could downsize on. You've done it. You'd
be surprised in what you can live without. That's something I've learned real quick. We have a storage unit with all our fancy city amenities, if you will, right up the road from us. And there's a lot of stuff in there that I don't think we even need anymore. That you learn. I mean, you don't need a coffee maker, believe me. We've got ways of making coffee that makes better coffee without plugging something into the wall.
Well, you mentioned that, and it's kind of funny. We have an espresso maker downstairs, but it's not the fancy kind. It's just this. It's basically a tin can, essentially, and with a filter on it. Mm-hmm. You put the coffee in the filter, and then the water in the bottom, and it percolates up through, and voila.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
You think about how people used to live 100 years ago. Right. It was a lot different than we do now. And
as long as you have heat, you can make coffee.
Exactly. If you've got, that's the one thing. You have to have fire. And, we do, basically it's a wood stove. Mm-hmm. And we just truck with the snowmobile, we pull our wood down. Would we burn 6 cords this year? So gotcha. We're very conservative. I mean, the house was at 50 degrees all winter.
Okay.
Which isn't bad.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when my job, I work outside in sub-zero weather every day for 10 hours. So when you come in and it's 50 degrees, you feel like it's a sauna.
You darn right you do.
Yeah. Everything's
a contrast.
Relative.
Yeah, it's all relative. It's exactly right. Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, I like it cool.
Yeah.
The wife likes it around 68. Mm-hmm. I like it around 59.
My nephew likes 80. That's why he doesn't like turkey hunting now, because it's too cold in the morning.
Right. Well, it's interesting that you bring up this lifestyle, because we had somebody on just a couple weeks ago that was doing a homestead type lifestyle. I think they had more of the running water and electricity, but they were living off of the land. They were growing their own vegetables. They were only eating either farm-raised cattle or beef, and they were only eating venison and turkeys that they killed.
Hey,
That's
nothing wrong with that. You got to like that kind of
Right.
that life.
Right. Now they're doing a little more fancy stuff for sure, but that rustic, I mean, you're basically like it used to be before electricity really came into play.
Definitely.
But that's how everybody used to live.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of options right now that you can use to have the amenities of home, if you will, and to use probably an overused phrase, to be off the grid.
Right.
You know, while at this point solar panels are still need a little bit more work, I think. I mean, we have 4 right now, and they'll basically run our lights. And if we put the inverter on, we can run a few small appliances, but we don't really need them. We got an old, 1930s ice box. We go and buy ice, we stick it in there, and we got refrigeration. We got even more refrigeration when it's cold out, though. Your beer has never been colder than sitting in a cooler on the porch.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. So.
That's a cool way to live, and I'm envious. And not all at the same time. Like, I think that's a really cool way to live, and I think I could definitely live that way.
Think of the extra money you have not paying for certain things that we've come to expect in our lives. Right. So it is pretty nice.
Yeah, and you kind of get used to this other lifestyle, though. So it's really hard to break away. I think if it was just me, then I could do that as a heartbeat. But when I've got to change the habits of my children, change the habits of my wife, that is not so easy.
No, I got lucky. As Phil Robertson would say, he has a pioneer woman. Well, I have one too.
You do too. That's right.
If it weren't for her, I probably would have been living in a cave. So at least we got a roof over our head.
That's awesome, man. Very cool. Let's talk about the New Hampshire Shed Hunters Club, and we'll talk a little bit about your strategies here. But I want tell me about the formation of the club, when it was formed, and why you formed it.
All right, in 2007, I can remember it like it was yesterday. We were living in Unity, New Hampshire, in a farmhouse that we had bought, and I had gone out shed hunting that day, which you can find me doing most of the time in the spring. And I brought home this awesome set of matched moose sheds. They were really cool. And I remember being on the internet, which at the time I think we had web TV or something to that effect. But I remember looking there, and there was no place on the internet to show off your antlers that you'd found in New Hampshire. They had them. There was a place. There was a website from Minnesota that I really liked, and he was great. He'd have all these cool stories and all these neat pictures from different people of these antlers that he'd found. So I kind of wanted to do the same thing. Of course, I had no idea about what the internet really was or how it worked. Luckily, Diane kind of had figured out how to make a website. So
nice. So
she made the website for me, so I could go out and find a shed and put a picture of it. And then kind of at the time, the thing was the big thing you'd hear from certain people who were shed hunting was, when are they dropping? When are they dropping? And I figured this was a good segue for people to go on and be able to see, okay, well, Joe over here in this town, he just found a set of deer sheds, so they must be starting to drop. So I figured it was a great way to do that. So we made the website, and it basically at first was just show off what you had, kind of thing. And it kind of grew from there.
Gotcha. It's kind of similar to how we started Big Buck Registry. Just some friends sharing some pictures.
Yeah.
Well, then that friend wants in on it, and then we opened it up to the world, and then it took off. It became a kind of like a club, a little niche, a little group where everybody hangs out, has a similar interest. Basically.
Exactly.
Right. Well, that's very cool. Let's get into some of the techniques, and I'm going to turn the mic over to Dusty here and have him kind of drill you on what types of things you do when you go into the New Hampshire woods to find sheds, because I think it's fascinating that you can do it in New Hampshire, quite frankly, because there aren't that many antlers to find, first and foremost, but you guys seem to have a high degree of success. So if you're getting it done, then that means that you're doing something well above the norm. And I think that's obviously what we like to bring back to the Big Buck Registry is somebody that is very skilled at what they're doing and is clearly related to the whitetail or deer hunting in some fashion.
Mm-hmm. Rob, you're going to have to give me a minute because I'm going to explain that New Hampshire is, seems like millions of acres of timber and 1 4-acre hayfield every 25 miles. And then you got another 1 million acres of timber and 1 4-acre hayfield, and then 21 miles or 22 miles. The reality is, Rob, with you being in New Hampshire, and you've gained my utmost respect because finding New Hampshire sheds is something that, man, I'm envious of that because of the fact that the deer herd is not there. The quality of bucks is not there, so you're looking for smaller sheds right off the bat. Just no nutrition and just not the environment that grows big, healthy, huge antlered whitetails. So right there, you already got a negative in your shed hunt program. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some nice bucks in New Hampshire, but they're not plentiful and they're far few between, and the size is of not much quality
compared to Dusty in Ohio.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Relative to Maine, it's similar. But to Dusty in Ohio, who can go shed hunting and find a whole bunch in an afternoon,
I'm envious of him, actually.
I know, right? So, but the grass is greener.
The challenge is for real in New Hampshire. Shed hunting New Hampshire is a for real challenge. And how do you even start to get a focal point in let's say you've picked out a place, and I want to break you down how do you find that particular place that you're going to shed hunt to begin with, but how do you go through the process of in your mind and either on a map or however, how do you lay out a travel route that's most likely going to be successful in shed hunting New Hampshire? Run us through that, if you would.
All right. Well, you are correct. I believe that New Hampshire is the second most wooded state in the country. And it's very, very hard to just drive down the road, find a spot, jump out, and find a shed. It's not going to happen. So what I do is, first and foremost, the thing that I'm looking for is I'm looking for southern exposures. The deer are going to get on those southern exposures because they need to digest the food that they're eating, for one. For two, in the wintertime, it's cold. They want to be in the temperatures. And the other thing is, those southern exposures generally have oak trees on them, especially in the higher country. So you find those if there's mast. I mean, everything's cyclical in New Hampshire. It all has to do with what food they're eating at the time. So that's what I look for first, is a southern exposure. Because a deer, even if they're somewhere eating, who knows, apples, they're going to find a southern exposure to lay down on. The other thing you want to look for is if you're having a year with real heavy snow and there's no mast crop and there's no fruit crop at all, you want to look for your hemlock groves, your thick places where they're going to go and yard up. The question is, you got to figure out when the snow comes, because our deer are going to drop somewhere between December and March. And I know that's a big window, but generally, I find that the bigger deer are going to drop a little bit earlier than the younger deer, especially if the breeding gets done early. If it doesn't get done early and you get a secondary or a tertiary rut, you're probably going to be finding deer dropping in March. But you want to find those yards, especially if the snow comes early. If it comes later, this year we didn't have a whole lot of snow, so the deer were moving around a little bit. So we generally tend to focus on food first and then bedding areas. And if it's a real bad winter, I won't even go in the woods until after the snow's starting to melt after March, because I don't want to stress the deer out at all.
Right.
Because they really do get pretty stressed in March. People think that it's February and January that they get stressed, but it's actually March, because now their fat reserves are at the lowest bit. And if you get in there and push them around, you can really do some damage. But topographical maps is another aspect that we use, definitely. I always look for saddles in higher terrain, because a deer are obviously going to travel through the saddles back and forth. I'm going to try to break this down a little bit, because people will ask me, what do I do? And it's really tough to tell you because, like I said, it has to do with the weather, the food, and what time the snow falls. Like I think I told you before, it's very scientific how I try to figure this out.
Right.
And sometimes I drive myself crazy doing it. But there's different places you're going to find sheds in New Hampshire. One of them, like I said, will be your southern exposures. The other places are going to be the routes that the deer are taking from their fall areas that they're rutting in and their wintering yards if they get bad snow. Especially in the northern country, people will tell you that the deer make a big migration from the high country down in the lower areas.
Yep.
So you want to try to find those areas that they're coming from, the higher country to the lower country, the routes that they're going to use. And you can do that with a topographical map and kind of figure it out a little bit. But a lot of it is local knowledge, just knowing the areas so well. I mean, all the places I shed hunt are places I've shed hunted for years and years. But I can still go just about anywhere, look at a map, kind of figure things out and go and shed. I mean, I just shed hunted a spot a week ago that I'd never even been to, and we found sheds. So it just basically you do your homework and you look for those places.
Very good. So how much time and research and scientific experimental type scenarios have you put into this?
Years. Literally years. Every year, the thing is, we live our lives every day, and we as hunters or farmers, you're basically living in this small square of time every year. You think about this. Every year, what's deer season's 3 months? So those 3 months, if you're a hardcore deer hunter or shed hunter like myself, you basically live for that 3 months.
Right.
And you only have 3 months to do this. And shed hunting's basically the same. You get about 2 to 3 months unless you're crazy and you're going to go through the tick brush all summer, which I'm not going to do. But you're living in that small expanse of time. Then you have the rest of the year to think about it. It'll drive you mad. It really will. So I basically, and Diane will tell you, I live this every minute of the day. Every 2 words that come out of my mouth is either shed, deer, or moose. That's what comes out of my mouth. That's what I'm thinking. I'm crazy like that. But
Diane's nodding.
No,
Yes.
I'm painting them. I'm reading about them. I'm out in the woods trying to find them. It's just, that's my life. So when you ask how much scientific research goes into what I'm doing, countless hours.
No kidding. So to break that down, when you go shed hunting, what is the most likely place that you're going to find a shed in New Hampshire?
If I'm going to bet my money on it, I'm going to say if you got mast, it's going to be in the acorns. That's their number one favorite food, hands down, every time of the year. They're going to be in acorns more than anything else. They'll take acorns over apples, over pears, over clover, over turnips, anything. They're going to take acorns first. So if I've got a mast crop, you can guarantee you I'm going to be up on the high sides of these hills, running back and forth, running around in that sunny stuff. Second would be definitely like a hemlock bedding area near a swamp or something where they've got thermal barriers and they can stay out of the weather. Those are my 2 favorite places.
No kidding. So you're focusing on acorns, thermal barrier.
Mm-hmm.
All right, gotcha. So once that you find an acorn ridge, the ultimate question is, how many sheds in New Hampshire are you looking into each year?
Year to year, I mean, I had a year I had 40. That was a lot. And that's not counting the moose sheds I found, but moose are a total different creature anyways. But this year so far, I've had a short year, didn't have a lot of time to go out. I think the dog, we've got 8 or 10 this year with the dog. So, but we've only been out for 3 or 4 weekends. It's not been a lot.
That's quite the success numbers in New Hampshire.
I would think so. I mean, I have friends that like my friend, one of the guys, Mr. Coster, he's probably one of the best, and I couldn't tell you how many he's found, but he's always a guaranteed commodity in the woods. I mean, he's going to find something. Of course, he's about, I guess he's maybe 6'3", and he's got legs like a giraffe, and he's one of these guys that can move real fast. I was born with stumps pretty much for legs, so I don't move real fast. I basically, when I'm shed hunting, I'm still hunting like you do deer. Okay. You couple of steps, look around, right. Look behind you. Always look behind you because you walk past them all the time. But he can cover a lot of ground and somehow can find them, even though he's moving fast. But everybody, I think that's probably one of the number one mistakes people make is moving too fast.
Right.
Unless you're experienced at it, people will just like walk through the woods. I never found a shed. Well, you probably tripped on 2 or 3 and didn't even know it.
Put this in perspective, Dusty. How many did Wayne Bolton, we had somebody on from Ohio who called him the shed hunting fool, just to put it in perspective. Do you remember how many he collected in a season?
Man, I don't recall, but I know that his complete shed collection is 4,000 or better.
Wow.
Yeah, just, that's the difference in Ohio and New Hampshire, though.
Definitely. Ohio,
you can comfortably walk 10, 12 miles in the daytime here in Ohio because we're flat.
Mm-hmm.
We have no elevation. Most of our sheds are found on the edge of flat timber and the edges of corn, soybean fields. That's why the East, being in the East Coast out that way, New Hampshire area, it's so interesting to hear you talk that you're hunting ridges and, acorn ridges and thermal areas, because here in Ohio, that really doesn't even cross your mind where you're in crop fields and small 10, 15 acre wood areas, the deer come out, feed in the fields, they bed in the woods. It's that simple.
Yeah. Yeah, we one of the places we just shed hunted was 3,500 acres of all timber.
Wow. Just that's not available here. Southeastern Ohio, there's a lot of timber, but there's still crops in the area, and there's still some flat land, and it's just amazing that you're finding the numbers you're finding in New Hampshire with the low population and so much woods to cover. I mean, there's just unlimited amount of timber in New Hampshire for a shed hunter to get into and explore, and the right to pass on the land. And it's just amazing that you're finding that many sheds with the situation and the climates and the conditions you're shed hunting in. And really, I just can't believe that you found that many in New Hampshire. I hunted for 5 days, Jay?
Yep.
Never seen the first deer. Never seen a flag of a tail.
Right.
It's tough. I mean, we were just looking at numbers of deer. In the state of New Hampshire, we have an estimated 100,000 deer here in the state.
And that's up from where it used to be.
Exactly.
20 years ago.
Yeah. Was it Michigan? Diane was saying that Michigan, they kill 300,000, or was it 300? Yeah, 300,000 and up deer.
Yeah.
In Michigan.
I remember that the Pennsylvania, I think, one year killed 3 times what our deer population was complete.
It's amazing. I mean, we're not a real big state, for one, and
No.
I don't think the deer would ever survive that many hunters easily. I mean, they'd get wiped out. But if you figure you got 100,000 deer, you got, say, in perfect situation, you got half of those are bucks, and then of those, a quarter of those are going to be big rack bucks.
Right.
That doesn't give you a whole lot of sheds to find.
Don't have a lot left to find.
No,
Exactly.
No, I mean, you can walk through the woods here hunting and never see a shed. It's a fact. I mean, I've done it. I've found match sets while I'm out deer hunting. But it's tough to find them unless you're really looking for them, or you're just lucky. She got lucky one time. We're setting up a ladder stand, and my wife, I had her back up so I could see if the deer were going to be able to see the entrance where I was going to use, and she about trips over one down over the bank behind her. I mean, that's a lucky shot,
That's funny.
Wow, it's quite amazing that you find that, man. Now, when you incorporate in the dog, did that change things? Did that help your odds, or?
Yeah. My dog doesn't. He hunts them a little different than a lab would. I believe. I'm guessing. Watching Jeremy Moore's videos on how he trains the dogs. My dog's a cattle dog, an Australian cattle dog.
Right.
And he's not really built for a retrieving dog. He does retrieve them, but what I do is I watch his body language as we're moving along, because he's still young. He hasn't gotten to the point where he'll range out from me very well. So I watch his body language, and I can tell when he smells one, and then I'll encourage him to go and find it. Well, it's increased me probably 7 to 1, I would say. If I can get into an area that hasn't been picked over, and that's something, Jay, you probably have heard through the grapevine. What we do get picked over hard. Everybody's out shed hunting, right, and they get places to get picked over. So you get in there too late and you can't find anything. But well, I say you can't find anything if you're doing it with your eyes, but the dog can find stuff that people miss. So I think I've kind of gone up about 7-1 for using the dog. I'd like to get him into a couple of places. It would be great to have a place like where you are, Dusty, where I could just kind of let the dog go for training and find sheds. The one thing I found with my dog is I can't have a strict hand on the dog like you would like in a duck blind, because the dog's going to get bored here. He's not finding sheds every 20 minutes to an hour, so he's going to get bored. I have to keep him playing. I have to keep him interested in whatever he's doing, and then kind of use that as he's having his fun, but once he smells the antler, he knows it's time to go to work. It's a little different in that respect, I guess. But we did use Jeremy Moore's system to train him, and he does love the antlers beyond belief. He's always trying to steal them off the mantle or something.
Right.
Gotcha.
When you say that you would like to come here in Ohio, what I would say is that you bring a puppy here at 6-8 months old, you're taking home a broken shed dog for real.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
Just the opportunity for their nose to hit the dirt and the opportunity for antler location is unbelievable here. I mean, it's not unusual for somebody to go in and find 2 or 3 sheds a day in a piece of property, and either in a cornfield or in the edge of a wood line or soybean field, or some places the timber's good, but bedding areas, it just you can really pinpoint down where the deer are bedding and moving to here, where they're feeding, where the food source is, where the water supply is, and where the bedding area is. And you take a dog in there and there's sets of antlers in there. That's it's just such a small piece of timber that you can really you can put the puzzle together a whole lot easier here. It's not where you guys are like a 1,000-piece puzzle. We've got like 300-piece puzzles. It's not it's not difficult. With New Hampshire, and you're talking about a dog, how hard is it to, let's say, there's a lot of wildlife, from some partridge to bear to coyotes to bobcats to deer to moose. How hard is it to keep a dog under control with all the critters that New Hampshire offers?
Well, that's a tough one, because we do have a lot of little monkeys running around the woods. We have a lot of bear where I am, and I carry a pistol with me, not to shoot the bear. I mean, a bear comes in, I'm not going to shoot the bear unless it tries to eat me or the dog, but they scare it off, And with a puppy, he's what, 11 and a half months old now. And the cattle dog's not real big anyways. They kind of look like a tasty snack when they're 5 months old, 6 months old to a bear. So that's one challenge. The coyotes are another. Coyote will steal a dog just as quick as anything.
Right. Definitely. And
that was when we first started with Chance, we worked basically around the camp in controlled situations because he was so small with coyotes. Coyotes were my biggest fear,
and rightfully so.
Mm-hmm. Right. Owls. I mean, when he was first there, an owl could have picked him up and taken him off. Porcupines are the worst. Chance met his first porcupine this weekend. Wanted to be friends. Porcupine didn't want to be a friend, and he got a few quills in his nose. Porcupines are the toughest. And I think it's possibly part of it is because they're so smelly. I mean, a porcupine, you can smell him from 50 yards away. You know he's there. Right. So he got that, and then he found some rabbits. Basically, with trying to keep him away from the rabbit, he has a really good recall. When I call him back and use the whistle, I have a whistle, and as soon as I hit the whistle, he comes right back. So that's part of it. He didn't on the porcupine. There was something about that porcupine he just really wanted. He's run into moose. He's run into deer. The deer, he just watches run away. He doesn't have any interest in chasing them. And the moose, he's been around the cattle enough at the farm and the horses. He knows that's a big animal. I ain't messing with it. So he's really good about that. That's just the porcupines. I got to figure out, get him a helmet or something. I don't know.
Oh, jeez. Get him a helmet. Do you, being a cattle dog, now this is a natural herder. Mm-hmm. I mean, are you struggling with that, or is it is the cattle dog actually working in the favor of being a pretty good shed dog in the long run?
His tenacity is beyond compare. So that aspect of being able to I trying to remember what we walked the other day. Probably close to 10 miles, and it wasn't like you said. It wasn't nice, flat, easy miles. I mean, we're going up, 200 feet in elevation, or more in some places, up and down. And I don't just go up and then stay up. I'm up and down the side of this mountain 4, 5, 6 times, and then cutting back and forth. Dog stays with me all day, doesn't get tired out. I mean, he does when he gets home. He's pooped. But as far as herding, say herding a moose, he's got a pretty good respect for the cattle. We've kind of deterred him from doing normal cattle dog stuff with the cattle, primarily because we're basically a breeding farm and we have a lot of pregnant cows and we just don't want the stress on the cow. But it's there. That instinct is there for sure. But he has this love for antlers as much as I do, I think. So it kind of overweighs the herding aspect.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just curious how that was being a natural herder and a natural, obviously the cattle dogs obey, commands really well. And I see where they could be really good or really bad on both ends as far as the herding aspect of it.
Yeah. I mean, I got lucky. I got a really good dog, and I've never had a dog as smart as this one. He learns so fast. We had him doing, I would throw a ball out, and it took me 3 tries to get him to do a downstay while I threw the ball. I mean, some dogs, it'd take an hour before you could get them to even comprehend, don't get up from your downstay when I throw the ball. He had it 2 or 3 times, and he'll stay as long as I tell him to, which is great because he'll down when I tell him to. So if he's after something and I yell down and put my hand up for the command, he'll drop almost instantaneously when he's out in the field. So that's definitely a plus.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a great mannered dog and doing what the commands that you're offering to him. So that I could see where, like I said, it worked both ways on a cattle dog, but it's great to hear that he's not interested in the cattle as much as he is the antler. So that works out in your favor.
Definitely.
One last question: can you give us some coordinates where these sheds are in New Hampshire so we can go look for them?
I don't have the GPS with me, but I'd be happy to. Some of these are pretty far back in there. I mean,
I was going to say it's the type of thing like you can tell people how to do something, but darn well they're not going to. We've talked to people, deer hunters in Maine who do the tracking, and they're like, "Why are you telling everybody how to track?" Because the answer is because I know nobody's going to go do it.
No,
it's not easy.
No, that's how we hunt. Is we track, and it's the same with the shed hunting. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of mental strength to do it, because after you're out in the woods for 4 hours and you haven't found anything yet, most people are ready to go home and watch I Love Lucy and grab some salsa
never do
and
it
chips.
again, right?
Right. I seriously, honestly, I wear friends out, and I don't mean they get tired and go home. I wear friends out where they don't want to go back out with me ever again. My nephews, my daughter, they've all been put through this ringer of life that I've dished out. That you go out, you're out there for 10 hours, you walk as far out as you can go in some place where nobody's been, hopefully, and you're out there all day walking and slogging through the swamp and climbing. To me, that's fun. My nephew tells me, "Do you do anything for fun?" And I go, "That's what I do for fun." He says, "That's not fun." Right. So yeah, it's a tough thing, and I can teach anybody to do it if they have the capacity to want to try and stick with it. But I mean, that's how life is. People who are good at something are only good at doing it because, how did I used to say that? You're never going to get good at anything unless you do it all the time and you stick with it. Right. And the other thing I always say is you can't look everywhere. You got to look where you are. And I say that to myself all the time in the woods because, you can't, oh, maybe that ridge over there. Well, you're not on that ridge. You're on this one. So let's get on it.
Let's work this spot.
Right. But definitely, if you're going to be good at this, especially in New England, you really got to put your mind into it and you got to commit 100%, 110% every time you go out. Otherwise, you're just walking in the woods.
Right. But overall, you'd say adding a dog to your bag of tricks is a good idea.
Definitely, especially if you have a dog you can trust, basically to stick with you and not get into trouble. But if you really want to add that extra little bit, I mean, he's looking at the world with his nose and his eyes. He's already been taught. I mean, I catch him all the time going up to a stick that looks like an antler and just checking it because he knows what an antler looks like at a distance.
Yeah.
But he's also using his nose. And that's the one thing I have. I used to, when I shed hunt, I always like shed hunting a little better than deer hunting, especially after you've been out all season. Because during deer season, you got to use the wind in your favor, and you really got to be slow and quiet. And shed hunting, you can move along, you can talk, you can do all this stuff. You don't have to worry about the wind. Well, now that I'm using a dog, I now have to worry about the wind because I want to put the dog so the wind is in his favor to find stuff.
Right.
But it's definitely, if you want to up your odds into finding them, train a dog. It's not that hard. If you follow Jeremy's, you follow his dog bone system, you will have a dog that can do it.
Right.
I mean, especially if the dog's got an aptitude for it.
I gotta say, I think that the guys in New Hampshire that are hardcore woods hikers, they've got a little bit of mountain goat in their feet.
My son-in-law calls me a goat a lot because of that.
Dusty calls me a goat.
Well, there's an old Vermont joke that an old guy that I used to sugar with used to say. He says that Vermonters have one side of their leg, one leg that's shorter than the other, so they can walk around the side hills without tipping over.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, like you come here and you hike up a big hill here, and it's wet and damp. You're not going to make it because the slime mud.
Yeah.
It's terrible here. Jay can vouch for that. It's the worst mud
It's
you've
like
ever.
silicone. The mud there is so slippery. It's incredible.
So you get to New Hampshire, and it's like this granite, and you got traction, and you're able to go. And I swear, these guys, I went out there and what was that, Kearsarge? Am I saying that right?
Mount Kearsarge.
Mount Kearsarge, and we're hunting on the probably 3/4 of the way up, and these guys are like, yeah, we're gonna go for a hike over here and drive up this hillside, and we'll meet you back around in about 3 hours. And I'm like, what? 3 hours? Dude, what do you mean 3 hours, dude? And they're like, oh, dude, it's an hour and a half to get up to the top, and then we'll work it all the way back down. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, right? So 3 hours later, here they come rolling down. I said, man, and where they're coming from is straight up and down and granite. I'm like, how are you doing it? How are you guys doing it? Did you guys see anything? Nope. I said, yeah, that'd be the last time I ever walked that hill.
It's like being a dull sheep.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And the deer the same way, though,
Diane just said that you should see some of the places that you blood track. So you've got some dogs working a blood trail?
Yeah, we have Bella. She's a blackmouth cur, and she does our blood tracking that we are licensed through the state to do for hunters when they wound a deer.
Okay.
And lose it. And we've been in some pretty sketchy places with that dog.
Can we touch on that a little bit? That's
Why
pretty
not?
interesting. Let's
Sure.
talk about the blood track. See, this is another dog type scenario. And what happens? Will you get a call from a hunter that's lost a deer?
Yep, we're listed on the Fish and Game website under. Where's it listed under? It's under the. It's complicated. They don't just have a blood trackers thing that you can click on, but you can find us on the Fish and Game webpage, or there's New Hampshire Blood Trackers Facebook page that we have that you can get on there. Diane does a lot of dispatching, if you will, for different areas for different trackers, because we basically stay in Sullivan County. We've been the only blood trackers in Sullivan County since we started, so we kind of try to stay there. We'll go into some parts of Grafton. And we've actually gone down into Cheshire a little bit. Okay. But we used to do it with our Rottweilers. We had Rottweilers first, and they were all right. I mean, Diane's always had Rottweilers, so they did pretty good. But then we had a track in Claremont, and this is, I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago. I'm not sure. And we took Annie, who was our blood tracking dog at the time, and it was the shot was almost straight down into the deer, and it was a 1-lung hit. Mm-hmm. The dog, she tracked it for a ways, but the guys had got in there, kind of grid searched it and messed it up.
Yeah.
And she kind of just gave up and said, it's too much of a mess. I don't want anything to do with it. So we kind of felt bad because it was kind of rainy that night too. It was starting to rain. We felt kind of bad about it. And I had Diane called the kid back the next day and said, I got another dog I'd like to try. And Bella was kind of a rescue. A friend of ours he was in the special forces, and he had gotten really messed up on a drop in Afghanistan, and couldn't take care of the dog anymore. So he had us take care of her, and she kind of just became there. And I like every dog in our house to have a job. Chance is a shed dog. I'm not sure what River is right now, but Bella is our tracking dog. So I took her down there, and I said, I don't even know if she can do this, but let's try her. She's a hound, kind of, you know. We put her on there. That dog tracked that deer for 1,000 yards, and the kid we were with him. He says, does this dog knows what she's doing? We haven't seen any blood. No sooner did he say that, there was a good quarter-sized drop of blood in a bed. And I says, well, she's on it. So we tracked it for a ways longer, and it started going up the hill and everything, and it was moving pretty good. So I kind of figured one lung hit, it probably wasn't going to die. So we gave up. But then ever since then, Bella's been our go-to dog. She's amazing. She really knows what she's doing. She's never been formally trained. She just does it.
So based off of some of the experiences you've had with the dog, where do the deer end up going generally?
That's a great question. Well, this year, Diane did almost all our tracking. I really kind of didn't do a lot. I was busy at the farm, and I was a little burnt out from it, I guess.
Yeah.
But Diane did most of the tracking. I mean, you always hear that the deer go to water.
Go to water.
Always. They're going to go to water.
Yeah.
Almost never. We never find them, except for that one. I shouldn't say that. She had one this year that was in a brook, and it wasn't in the brook because it was drinking, because it was dying. I think it went to the brook because it was in its path.
Yeah.
It fell down a hill into the water.
Yeah, you know, the old timers always told us, well, go downhill and go to water. You'll find it.
Here in New Hampshire, no. I mean, I know I read an article, was it in Deer and Deer Hunting magazine, and I can't remember the tracker's name, and I know that's probably disrespectful. I shouldn't be. Who is it? Trapper John, I guess. He's from out in Dusty's area somewhere. He's a really famous tracker. He uses bloodhounds and stuff. He's a very good tracker. But he says if a deer can get to water, they will. Not so much here in New Hampshire. If they're going to go anywhere, they're going to go in the thick stuff. Mm-hmm. And that seems to be one of the things that we find is they'll go through when I say this, you'll know, I don't know if they use this term out west, but the pucker brush.
The pucker brush.
Yeah.
Right.
They get into the
gnarliest,
blackberry brambles and everything else. They tend to get into that stuff.
Quarter-inch long, up
blowdowns.
Blowdowns. Oh,
yeah, that's where they go because they want to hide. They feel their life slipping away, and
they're looking for protection because they know that they've.
Mm-hmm. That's the blood tracking. Actually, this all fits into shed hunting too. Mm-hmm. But we find that they'll go down in that kind of area a lot. If it's an actual death run, wherever they end up is where they're going to be.
Yeah, they're not too picky if they're...
Generally, this is kind of exciting. I get kind of excited about this kind of stuff because it illuminates a lot of deer behavior. Yeah. Even though the deer is on a death run, it illuminates a lot of the deer behavior because you know where they're going to go.
Right.
Deer always have escape routes if they're in danger, and by tracking, you find them. And some people don't even give it a second thought. But these are the places they're going to go. When you spook a deer, that's where they go.
Right.
It's always like what I call a back door for a buck. It's a spot that's a trail through a real thick section that they can get out of sight. We find them. Well, you had that doe that ended up in somebody's backyard. Chris's little creature was in the end of a swamp where there was a trail kind of skirting the swamp. They go into these little spots. And as far as the shed hunting, you picture where people do most of their hunting, and they're missing or they're wounding. And you find these nasty spots around these places they're going to hunt. And a lot of times you'll find dead heads, or you'll find skulls, or you'll find parts and pieces. And it's we used to find quite a bit of stuff in there in those kind of places too. I mean, it's like a secondary spot to look. From
the shed hunting that you've done, is there a correlation? I mean, and the reason I ask this is because your shed hunting is usually done after the deer hunting season. Mm-hmm. So is there any correlation between where you're finding sheds and what type of habits the deer would have during the deer season?
Generally, Yes, in a matter of speaking. It may not correlate 100% to hunting unless you're finding them in a food area.
Okay.
Because a buck changes its habits during the rut. What I find with the sheds is I'm finding the sheds in places that are the buck's normal home range, or home range is fairly small for most bucks, not all bucks, because once again, deer don't go by our rules. They do whatever they want. But generally, a group of, like a bachelor group, is going to be in one area, bedding to eating, and water. So I'll find my sheds in places where it's their normal after the rut kind of thing, once they've separated from the does. Like you said, unless it's in feeding area, because they all mingle in these oak spreads and stuff. But I'll find a lot in these bedding areas that it's one thing that people should think about is if you're finding a ton of sign, generally that's does.
Right.
If you're finding a spot that's like totally packed down with even big tracks, it's does. Bucks generally kind of go off on their own, and you'll find a spot that's got sparse sign. That's generally a pretty good indicator as far as my shed hunting goes that I'm in a spot that there's a buck.
Okay.
And then you can tell by smell too.
Okay. That's kind of what I was getting at. It's like, there are habits of these bucks that although it's happening at a different time of year, they still have similar habits all year round, or there are some habits that they follow all year round, no matter what they're doing. That's what I think the shed hunting can really shed some light on, how these creatures live. And as a hunter, you can use that to your advantage.
Definitely.
Once you understand it. So if you spend a lot of time looking for sheds, you start to understand the habits of the white-tailed buck, and you can apply that all year round, especially into your deer hunting season.
Yeah, exactly. The stuff that I learned from shed hunting is most frequently in my hunting is used during bow season.
Okay.
Because during bow season and early bow season, September and October, the deer haven't changed their habits yet. They're still on their summer pattern or their normal, pattern. That where you're finding the sheds is generally where you want to bow hunt, as far as I'm concerned, because the deer hasn't started noticing the girls yet. He's not going to the junior prom yet to pick out his girlfriend. So he's in his spot that he feels most comfortable and safe in, and that's where he generally. If you're not finding him where he's eating, you're going to find him where he's bedding. And somewhere in between that, rub lines.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yes, a deer that we call Lefty is a perfect example of that. We found his shed, one shed. After this deer for 3 or 4 years, we found one shed. And it's on a rub line between where he's bedding in this nasty, craggy, nasty spot, just straight up and down with nothing but little benches on these cliffs, and where he was eating on our food plots that we had at the time and our apple trees. So I use rub lines like a map, because a deer is going to make those rub lines before the deer season. He's making those before the main rut. And what a rub line does is it shows you his general path between where he's feeding and where he's bedding. And you'll find a lot of them in, what do they call it, a staging area before they enter a field or an orchard or someplace that's more open. You'll find a big area where they've made a bunch of a bunch of rubs. But you back follow that and you'll find where he's bedding. All you have to do is follow those rubs back and you find their bedding area. Okay,
good to know. So there are a couple of interesting rules that are new in New Hampshire this year relative to deadheads and relative to dog usage in certain wildlife management areas.
Yep.
You want to touch on those two things?
Yeah, I'll hit these real quick. They're not on the webpage yet. You can email Fish and Game if you have any questions. I'll say it that way. WMAs that are run by Fish and Game departments, such as the Enfield Wildlife Management Area, and I'm not sure the rest. I know the Enfield one especially because I went there the other day with Chance, and we couldn't go on it because the dogs have to stay on a leash from March 15th to July 15th, which puts us right during the shed season.
Okay.
So that was you have to check with Fish and Game to see if the wildlife management area that's near you allows dogs off lead if you want to use a shed dog.
What is the purpose of that? I mean, it seems like if you're taking a dog for a walk in the woods,
it's to protect ground nesting birds.
Okay.
Woodcock and a lot of the small sparrows, juncos, different birds like that nest on the ground. They're fearful for the dogs getting into the nest and killing the nest.
Okay. All right.
So obviously people are going to say, well, the coyotes are going to do it, the foxes are going to do it. Well, your dog eats dog food at your house. It doesn't have to eat the eggs out of a nest where a coyote or a fox or bear or whatever has to eat that way. So, it's just an added nuisance for the wildlife to have to experience, to have your shed dog go eat a nest of woodcock eggs. So I believe that's the main reason. The signs are going to go up during the wildlife management areas. So you'll see them at your parking areas where you access. And as far as the deadheads go, used to be if you found a rack buck in the woods, it's just nothing but a skull and bones now. You should just pick it up, stick it on your backpack, and go. Now Fish and Game would like you to let them know that you found it and have a GPS coordinate or a really good description of where you found it, so they can go back and run the body over with a metal detector maybe to see if it was shot, to see if it was poached, especially with moose. I think that's the main concern is with moose. So that they also would like you to, if you find a dead moose in the woods, that we have the winter tick problem and the brainworm problem.
Right.
If you find a carcass or you find a freshly dead moose, if you have a GPS like I do, you mark it and you give them the GPS coordinates so the biologist can go and check it out. If you find it and it's partially eaten but it's still got fur on it, they can't touch it until they okay it. A CO will come out and tell you, yeah, you can take this. Right. You can take the rack.
All right. So a couple of new rules there for New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I have a buck that I've been hunting for 3-4 years and I haven't killed that buck, and I've been hunting the sheds from that buck for 3 or 4 years and haven't found the sheds yet. What would you? What's some advice you'd give to somebody that was in that scenario?
Well, the best, you're not looking in the right spot, but
that's the obvious one. That's
right,
the obvious
exactly.
Answer.
I'm just kind of being a smart ass on that, but he's probably coming from a lot farther away to where you're hunting, or you're getting pictures of him than you think. Lefty, another perfect example. That's a great example. Here's a buck that we had food plots on our property. He'd only show up at night. So if you're getting most of your pictures at night, you can guarantee that he's coming a long ways. If he's bedding 100 yards from your hunting area, you're going to get daytime pictures of him.
Right.
So what you have to do is you have to find this is something that's hard to explain without actually doing it. But okay, let's put myself in this situation. I got a buck that I've seen on my camera, and it's a nice one. I want to find his sheds. I have to use my brain, and I have to look at a topographical map, and I have to say, okay, does it look like he's living here or he's living someplace else first?
Right.
Second, what I'm going to do is I'm going to backtrack. In normal way I'm going to do this is I'm going to try to find a high spot. There's an old saying, bed high, eat low. I don't know if you've heard that.
Yes, I have.
You want to go up high first. Benches and everything like that are something you're going to look at. Now, the deer a whitetail can travel 3 to 4 miles in a night easily.
Right.
So, and you'll see this out west a lot, is you'll see a deer that you get pictures of over here, and 4 miles away he gets shot.
Right.
So what I would do is I would find the highest spot you've got and the nastiest highest spot you got and start from there and then work back to where you're hunting.
Okay. Within how far a distance?
Generally, they're...
The closest, highest spot that you have?
Well, I mean, if it's 100 yards away, no. But
relative to the time frame that they're showing
I'd say
up?
within start with a 1 square mile area on your map.
Okay.
And work your way out from there. Because normally these deer, these big guys like that, they don't travel too far to eat. I mean, I don't travel too far to my refrigerator. I don't know about you guys, but it's just one of them things. But if he's a younger buck, let's say he's a 3-year-old, it's just like when you're a kid. When you were 16 years old, you traveled along all over the place to check stuff out. Now that you're an older guy, you don't travel that far to do anything.
Right.
Well, the older buck's the same way. But I definitely look for a high spot that's nasty. If you have a high spot, I mean, if you're in a place, I live in the mountains. I mean, it's not unnatural to find deer at 1,700 feet above sea level easily.
Right.
And the big boys like to go up that high because there's nobody up there to bother them.
Right.
So that's what I would do. I would look farther back, definitely get a 1 mile radius and try to find a spot that they like.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good. I brought in a couple of examples here of this is a shed that Dusty found that he gave me as a souvenir on my deer hunting trip to Ohio. And so this would be a baby buck in Ohio, but would be a decent buck.
That's a shooter here.
That's a shooter here, right? And this one right here is one I found. Came out of Loudon.
That's a cocker right there.
Yeah, that's a good one, right?
That's a nice one. That's got some weight to it,
right,
too.
Right.
It's at about a 6-inch base.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's Loudon.
That's Loudon.
You better go over to Loudon.
Now, I found that. What's interesting about that is I wasn't shed hunting. As I find most of my sheds, I find them during deer hunting season.
Yeah.
And what was unique about that one is that one was completely immersed in a small stream.
Ah.
And I say a stream that was probably 2 feet wide and probably 2 feet deep. That's it. And that one was completely immersed except for the tip. And you can see how I had the taxidermist kind of repair the tip. That was all gnawed off.
Yeah.
Everything else was completely submerged. It was protected from all the rodents. But that, there was snow on the ground. I just looked down to take a step over the stream. I looked down and it's right underneath my feet. Oh. Like, wow. That's unbelievable.
I like it. That's a 5.5 to 7-year-old deer right
That's
there.
a dandy buck right there.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I pulled it out. It was my first shed I've ever found.
Did Dusty say that was small?
I don't. Do you remember what you called that one, Dusty?
I don't, Jay.
I think you thought that was a pretty decent rack.
That's pretty chunky.
It's chunky. It's a chubby tines.
That's typical New Hampshire big buck though.
Right.
I mean, I've got a ton of sheds that are real heavy like that.
Yeah.
But short tines, and that's genetics.
Right.
Or people use the word genetics a little too much, I think. But
right.
It's just a trait for that area.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what is that, a 62 inch, something like that?
I'd say. Yeah. Yeah, but it was fantastic to find that. It was to this day, like, it just gives me just complete satisfaction that I was actually in the woods that day and I found that. I mean, it's my most prized possession I think I have because of the pure mass on it. Blows your mind. You're like, wow.
And you're deer hunting.
And I'm deer hunting.
So you look at that and you go, oh
right.
boy. Yeah.
And what's crazy is, so I find that, but then I find some of those rubs, the big, 8-inch diameter tree rubs in that same spot. I guarantee you it was that buck that dropped those antlers that was making the same rubs.
Oh,
and he's a year older.
You can go back to the same spot you found that, and generally what I've found we go after specific bucks. I mean, it's just a sick thing that I do. I mean, you can wander through the woods and pick up every antler you find, or you can find a deer and get history with it. And generally that's what we do. This year I finally, since the time I talked to you last, I found a deer that I can get into.
Okay.
So
right.
I really like this one. And but now you can build up a character of this deer, and like they do nowadays, you can name it. Like I've done for years. I did it before it was popular. I was naming deer.
Right.
So, but this deer here that you found, I would imagine that in the same area that you found that, the deer are going to carry that characteristic.
Right.
And even if this deer is obviously, I don't know how long ago it was you found that.
I'll tell you exactly. It was, because I etched it on there. 1999.
Yeah, he's dead.
He's a dead deer.
Yeah, he's gone. But that same area is going to carry that same characteristic and mass because it's probably has to do with the nutrition that's found in that area.
Right.
So that'd be a great place to go and find. Heck, he doesn't look like he have much of a spread, but still.
What's crazy is I found that where they had gone and where I was hunting, a long time ago, prior to 1999, they had gone in and I think there were plans to build a golf course in this area. Well, something happened and the golf course never happened. But what happened is, relative to that, it created some pretty good whitetail habitat. Once it grew up, and you can still see the fairways to this day. Well, maybe not now, but 99 you could. And it created just some amazing whitetail habitat. And so I'm sure if you go back there today, you probably would find more things like that.
Oh yeah, be definitely a place to take a dog in and look around.
Right.
Because you're going to find oldies. I mean, I pick them all up, especially now with Chance. Every antler's his first antler to me. It's like having a little kid. It's his first baseball game. Right. He gets his first hit, But that's definitely I'd be more than proud to find something like that. That's a great one.
Dusty, you want to go on a memorable deer hunt with Rob?
Yeah, let's do it. Rob, where are we headed on your memorable deer hunt?
I'm going to have to go just about the same time you found that antler, about 99.
All right.
There was a deer that I had found a shed from on the farm that we called the Dragon. He had probably close to a 28-inch spread. He was just he had mass like this. He had 6 inches of mass at the base. And I'd found every one of his sheds up to this point. And we had just cut a big section on part of a mountain. My nephew, who was at the time, I think he was probably 8 or 9 years old, wanted to go deer hunting. So he didn't want to get up early. Of course, he's a little kid. So I says, well, we'll go out for the afternoon. We get there about 11 o'clock, and we started up the ridge. And I was carrying my Model 94, my favorite gun in the whole world. And I looked up on the ridge, and I saw what I thought was a stump, a log laying across. And my nephew says, that log looks a lot like a deer. And I says, yeah, it does, doesn't it? That's kind of cool. You know, little kid, you're trying to show him things. We're showing him tracks and everything. And he says, yeah, that looks like a deer. And I says, yep, it does. And then we're both looking at it. And at the time, we see the head turn. And I see this rack that I could have laid my nephew in between, standing there looking at it. It's great big big deer. He was up the hill probably 200 yards. And I knew that with that Model 94 with iron sights, that was going to be a lot of a shot.
Right.
So all we could do is sit there and watch. And we had circled around the back side of the hill. And I says, you never know. He might come down here. So he was sitting there and fell asleep. And a couple of does had come by. And he finally woke up. And we were heading back down. It was getting close to dark by that point. We were coming down the mountain. And I was showing him gun safety, you know. We're going to unload the gun. I'm going to show you how to unload the gun. So I unload the gun, and we're not maybe 200 yards from my car. I could see the car at the place it was. No sooner did I unload that gun, put the bullets in my pocket, he wanted to carry the rifle, so he's carrying the rifle nice and safely, you know. And that stupid deer run across the road and stood there 20 yards in front of us on the tote road. And he picks the gun up and goes pointing at the deer. And he goes, boy, I wish it was loaded.
Of course.
And off the deer goes. So that's probably pretty memorable. And that deer, we ended up finding them the next winter, dead of old age, pretty much. Had no teeth left.
Really?
He was a big old deer, yeah. So that was the story of the Dragon.
It ain't always about the kill, is it?
No. There's a lot of times where it's a lot more memorable when there is no kill than there is when there is.
Absolutely. That just makes you close your eyes and sit there and listen to you tell the story and can replay it in your head almost.
I think everybody's had a situation like that where you've given up for the day, and unloaded the gun or put the gun down to take a leak or something, and the biggest buck of your life runs by.
It happens. Yeah, it's called Murphy's Law.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Good old Murphy.
Old Murphy. We've been Murphy'd.
Yep.
Once again. Well, let's go through some 10 rapid-fire questions.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Now, I know you can kind of sort of see, because you're actually in the studios. This isn't a long-distance interview.
No.
And I know you can kind of see the questions over here, but I don't think you've even been peeking.
No.
All right. What's your number one hunting tip of all time?
Slow down.
Slow down. That's a very good tip right there. We all have these things that we like to hunt with. We go in the woods, and it drives us insane if we leave it in the truck or we leave it at the house. What's that one thing for you?
My Model 94.
Very good. All right. What's your biggest pet peeve in life?
Boy, that's a long list. People are too loud in the woods. Talk too much.
Gotcha. All right. How old are you today, Rob?
47.
You're 47. What would you tell the 27-year-old Rob Richardson, knowing what you know today about life?
Woo-hoo. Wow, let's see.
These are very reflective questions.
Well, I think I'd tell him not to worry about all the stuff that's going on, because it's going to get better. Slow down.
All right. You're at a hunting convention somewhere in the world, and you strike up a conversation with somebody in the lobby, and they ask you what you do for a living. What do you tell them?
I shovel cow poop.
All right. Rolling right along. What did you have for breakfast today?
Maple and brown sugar oatmeal and a banana.
Very healthy, Rob.
Yep.
Very nice. All right. You get your own billboard on the side of a highway. It's a blank canvas. You can put anything you want on it. What would it say?
Oh, boy. That's a great question.
Take your time.
Country folk ain't dumb.
All right. It's a common conception. I understand that. If I say the word successful to you, who's the first person that pops into your head and why?
Lane Benoit.
Lane Benoit. That's a very good one. Good friend.
Mm-hmm.
Good friend of mine.
I'd say he took everything he knew and used it to his advantage.
Yeah.
And lived life to the fullest.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with that one. All right. And what's a typical day in your life look like?
Wow. First, I get to wake up to Chance jumping on me like Dino the dinosaur.
About what time of day is that?
Oh, about 6 o'clock. I get to work about 8 o'clock. My brother's already running around like a wild man, trying to figure out what's going on. Sends me down to feed the cows. I sing to them, different things, talk to them, brush them out. Then let's see, I clean out the horse stalls, which is always fun. Put them out, turn the horses out. And then by that time, it's almost lunch. So I sit down and eat lunch my lovely wife has made me. And then after that, we have the special projects like blowing leaves and scraping the pens and stuff with the bobcat. The bobcat's one of my favorite things to do, by the way. I like driving around. Haven't tipped it over yet.
All right. Very cool.
Then evening chores start, and I have to feed the bulls, which are my two best friends. I got to say, yeah, next to Chance. That's Bub and Joby, my two bulls. We feed them. Brush them a little bit so they're happy. Then we go down and feed all the show heifers. And then I get in the boat. Oh, I forgot about going across the pond in the boat.
I was going to say, there's something missing to this whole story. It was the one, my favorite part of the story.
So I drive back down to our parking area. Diane comes across in our little red and white boat, picks me up. We go over, and the first thing I say when I get on the dock is, "What's for dinner?" And she says, "I'll make something. You play with Chance." So Chance comes out and play with his red ball, and he does his backflips and his jumps and everything, and asks me if we were going to go shed hunting, and we go in, and then we turn on we can actually get a hotspot on our phone there, and we can watch the Rifleman, which I dearly love, on our internet, and then we go to bed.
Nice. Very cool. All right, so let's switch it around. What's a typical deer hunting day in your life look like? Is it any different than that?
Oh, a lot different.
All right.
First thing that happens, we're up at 3 in the morning. We eat breakfast. I have to decide where to go. I have to grab my Lane Benoit jacket, my green wool coat, checkered coat, my pants, put them on, grab the Model 94. Or actually, I got to decide whether I'm going to take the Model 94 or the 35. Not sure, but usually it's the Model 94 because it's my blanket, my security blanket. Take that and get in the woods and start moving along the spot I got to get. 2 steps and stop, 2 steps and stop, and just move through the woods. I don't ever eat when I'm hunting, and I know I get in trouble for that from my wife. She always yells at me for not stopping to eat lunch.
Right.
So then I shoot a big buck, and okay, that's not really a typical day, but generally I gotta say I slow down. I enjoy when I'm out there. Everything from the bark on the trees to the leaves on the ground to the birds, everything else. And I've seen a lot of cool things out there, and I just follow the deer trails.
Nice. All right. Very good, man. That's the 10 rapid fire questions, Rob.
Okay.
You did well. Nice job. Very cool. Well, tell me where we can find out more information about you and your organizations that you formed if the listener wants to know how to contact you.
Well, we have Facebook pages. Facebook's a great thing because you can have a number of things on there. So we have the New Hampshire Shed Hunters Club on Facebook. You can go there. You can post pictures of your sheds. You can tell us your stories. You can ask questions. James or myself will answer them. Or you can go to New Hampshire Blood Trackers page on Facebook, and that's for all the trackers. Or you can go on, and we have one for ourselves, Working Class Canine, which is all kinds of our good stuff. It shows different things to how to train your dog and things that you can buy and just all kinds of fun stuff. That's Diane's little thing. And then I have my own Facebook page, which is Rob Richardson, New Hampshire Shed Hunter. You can go on there, request to be my friend. We can share pictures. We can do all that fun stuff they do on that internet thing. And
the interwebs.
The interwebs. Mm-hmm. And another one that we like to talk about is our friend Ryan, and that's Shed Dog Outdoors. And he sells everything for shed dog hunting, backpacks and shirts and hats and training paraphernalia and all that kind of stuff. So
nice. He
kind of gives us a little bit of a sponsorship for our show, for our videos in the Quest for 200 and the New Hampshire hunting adventures,
right,
or Granite State hunting adventures that we're doing. So
right.
These are all basically, this is my life on paper.
Very cool, man. Very cool. Thanks for joining us, Rob. Thank you very much for coming into the studios and telling us all about where you live, how you live, all your little tips and secrets about finding sheds and kind of what your life is going on in the woods and out of the woods.
Well, thanks for having me. I was happy to be here.
Rob's a pretty interesting guy, isn't he?
Oh, super interesting, Jay. And I tell you what, his artwork's phenomenal.
It's amazing what's behind the person that you're talking to. You look at Rob, and he's a rough-looking guy with a red beard, but inside he's an artist, and he's a heck of a good deer hunter, and he loves working with animals and finding sheds. He's a really good guy, so it's kind of funny. Don't always judge a book by its cover, let's put it that way.
Right on, yeah, for sure. But seems like he's got a lot of knowledge in the New Hampshire whitetail woods as far as shed hunting, and hopefully everybody takes and uses his tactic out on the East Coast and puts them to the ground and has better success.
Right, yep. I learned a lot from Rob, actually, just listening to him talk, and some things I think I'll throw in my bag of tricks come this fall. And speaking of bags of tricks, Dusty, you have a bunch of them. Do you have a Chubby Tines tip of the week this week?
Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about the whitetail deer and what's going on in the woods right now. I know a lot of people's focused on turkey hunting.
The Chubby Tines tip of the week is sponsored by Morse's Sporting Goods. Firearms, used firearms, bows, used bows, located at 85 Kentucky Falls Road in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. Give Jim a call at 603-464-3444, morsessportinggoods.com. Your dollars go further in New Hampshire. There's no sales tax. Morse's Sporting Goods.
But if you get that particular buck that you want full season from the beginning stages of the velvet all the way through to the hard antler, and hopefully you get a shot at him this fall, right now is a great time to get them trail cameras out and get them hung up and start getting some pictures or take some video. It's that time of year, and start putting your minerals out and get the deer herd and the health going, and it's just that time, Jay.
Very cool. I agree with you. I think getting some cameras out would be a great idea right now. And it's also appropriate time to thank our sponsors. I'd like to say thank you to Advanced Takedown Tree Stands, Covert Scouting Cameras, the Euro Hanger, Morse's Sporting Goods, and the Horny Buck Seed Company, all for making this show possible. If you're looking at any of those products, please check out our sponsors. They really do put out a great product. We get behind them. We do care about our sponsors, and we wouldn't share that type of information with you unless we thought it would benefit you in some way, shape, or form. Or we have used all these products or have visited the stores, and we 100% back them up. So, Dusty, where can we find you when you're not hanging out with me here in Big Buck Registry Studios and when you're not in the turkey woods trying to kill that last turkey?
Shoot me an email, dusty@bigbuckregistry.com. You can look me up on Facebook, Chubby Tines Outdoors, @ChasingAntler on Instagram and Twitter. Jay, where can the people reach out to you when you're not on the mic?
Best place to reach me is jay@bigbuckregistry.com. And you can shoot me an email about anything, guest ideas, or if you've got some kind of a show idea. I'm looking for some additional show topics. One that came up is the CRP. I think we're going to explore that a little bit. Another one is deprivation permits, just to give you an idea of what we're looking for. And if you would like to come visit us on our Facebook page, our kind of cornerstone social media platform, it's bigbuckregistry.com/Facebook, where you'll find 250,000 plus diehard deer hunting fans just like yourself, and kind of creating a community over there. We can hang out and share photos. We do have a great photo share program. All you have to do is either upload it to the Facebook page through the messenger, or you can email it to us, or there's actually an upload feature, and you can find out how to do all those things over at bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck. You can reach us on Twitter, twitter.com/bigbuckregistry. We do monitor everything, so if you ever want to message us somehow or tag us or whatever you want to do, we do look at all that stuff. We're on Instagram, instagram.com/bigbuckregistry, and we are also on Google and YouTube, where you can find all of our videos that we've done on any trade show or any place we've ever been, or if we've done any kind of video regarding the podcast. The podcast is actually converted to a video on each and every time, each and every week as the show comes out, so that you can technically listen to it on YouTube. Finally, if you are the podcast listener through the traditional channels, places like Libsyn or iTunes, if you're an iTunes user, please subscribe. Leave us a review. Let us know how you like or dislike this show. We're still waiting for a 1-star review. I'm surprised we haven't got one yet. But the day that comes, I will read it on the air. And we're also on TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Blueberry, and Stitcher. So you've got a lot of different options for a variety of different listening devices and phones. I think that's a wrap, brother.
Holy cow, that's a lot of big buck, Jay.
It sure is. I'm Jay Scott.
And I'm Dusty Phillips.
And this is the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
We'll see you next week.
Can't wait.